Every time I hear the words Xbox get said out loud, it's always leading to something equally troublesome, almost always too. Their sales are down, players aren't coming in the ways they used to, and things just, well, they're not really looking very good. And then there's the franchise Microsoft didn't even help create, specifically over at Activision Blizzard. But before we begin, this video is sponsored by FreeCash. Gaming isn't cheap anymore. Between full price releases, live service models, and constant add-ons, it's getting harder to keep things under control without blowing your budget. That's why I've been using FreeCash. This lets you earn money by playing games and testing apps, but what makes it interesting is how it fits into your overall personal finance. Instead of dipping into your main wallet every single time something new drops, you can just use the app instead to finance the stuff that you love, whether it's covering a new game, adding to your savings. And did I mention there's not only games but surveys that you can do as well to earn money? It's all really straightforward to manage your spending better, and in case it all sounds too good to be true, FreeCash is on Trustpilot with a rating of 4.7 out of 5 stars, and payouts begin once you've earned $25 in bonuses. Everything is super seamless too. You can just track your earnings, manage your wallet, and cash out all in one place without it feeling complicated at all. Like, look, I'll even show you here. I am clicking my preferred payout, which is PayPal. I just click, I link my email, I click to verify, and boom, we're good to go. Like I said, super easy that even I can do it. And here's the best part, if you sign up using my link or scan the QR code on screen, you get up to a $10 sign up bonus. Just start a game through the app and you're already working towards unlocking it. So if you want a simple way to boost your savings, stay on top of your budget, and keep your gaming spending under control, give FreeCash a try. Use my link or scan the QR code right now and see how much you can earn. Thanks again to FreeCash for sponsoring this video, and now let's get back to it. As you know, Activision Blizzard does World of Warcraft, Diablo, StarCraft, Call of Duty, Overwatch. Like, my god, what a portfolio, dude. Absolutely insane reach with every one of these games mentioned and more. Yet, there's the ex-CEO president of Activision Blizzard. His name is Mike Ybarra, and he's kind of known at this point for having takes online that are usually met with backlash because he tends to act oblivious, as if he's not to blame for the majority of the issues that he created while working with Microsoft at Activision Blizzard. You see, Mike was the CEO president of Activision Blizzard from 2021 to 2024. In that span of time, Mike didn't exactly help the company maneuver in any way to really make better products overall. I mean, that can't even be denied. Looking at Activision Blizzard's rollout of games during that period and onward, it's all kind of a mess. And Mike, obviously, joined the company after Microsoft had already bought Activision Blizzard. And what it this ended up being was a match made in hell, pretty much, depending on who you ask. So, what happened now? Well, Mike Ybarra decided to again voice his opinion when it comes to his former employers, that is obviously Microsoft, and how things have gotten worse, not realizing that he's, well, kind of a big reason for why things were left in the state that they're in. So this all started on X, where GameSpot posted this article, as you can see, detailing how World of Warcraft just released a new patch that is being filled with a ridiculous number of bug fixes because WoW is full of them lately and it's not really getting better. And players are understandably annoyed and really fed up with how bad WoW is going right now. So what did Mike do? He decided to comment on this very post because surely that'll be a good idea, right? Well, here's what Mike said to the players being fed up with how Blizzard runs WoW and more. Unfortunate. WoW has to reset and the commitment has to be clear and firm or it will continue to decline. As you would expect, a tweet like this was taken and made fun of aplenty because remember guys, this is the dude who ran Activision Blizzard for a few years and did way more harm than good to everything that he worked on, WoW included, as this one user said jokingly. When would you say this alleged decline started, Michael? Like, yeah, Mike, when did that decline happen? Oh, you mean it happened while you were in charge of everything? Well, isn't that interesting? One user would then ask Mike genuinely if there was any specific reset that Mike pushed for during his time at Activision Blizzard. Here's what Mike said. Few things. A World of Warcraft that is about war, conflict, struggle, risk, reward, achievement. This is what WoW is all about. I wanted an expansion to go back and talk about how there is always a Lich King and take that story much further, so much more to be told here. Spending far more time on raids and the new ideas for the core gaming audience versus the casuals, and finally, World of Warcraft 2. Instead of the same WoW 1 expansions over and over reskinned for 10 or so years, just don't have the team for that anymore. It's changed so much since the Kaplan others days. So Mike not only admits that everything has been terrible for apparently 10 years now, but Mike's also other bright idea was that he wanted an expansion going back to the Lich King, but also wanted Blizzard to reset reset the entire World of Warcraft playing field by making a sequel game of all things, which would obviously in turn mean development for World of Warcraft 1 and I guess 2 would then be split down the middle, meaning less content and maintenance for both then. Yeah, this is the ex-CEO, by the way, who again clearly admits at the end there that the team just isn't there to facilitate such a pipe dream because it's frankly insane. Imagine suggesting the solution to WoW's problems were to just abandon everything pretty much and just make a new game. Yeah, I'm sure the people who have spent thousands of dollars and thousands of hours themselves playing WoW would love that. And, like, all this content that they have in their WoW accounts just abandoned. Great idea, Mike. Unsurprisingly, none of this went through for, well, obvious reasons. It's kind of impressive, though, how Mike just proved why presidents and CEOs tend to have bad ideas when it comes to games especially. Then that same user would then ask if Mike ever pitched the idea of a WoW 2 internally. Here's what Mike said. The president of Blizzard doesn't pitch game ideas. He or she has little influence on the games themselves other than input at various stages and random ideation, usually directly with the game director, who owns the creative vision for the game. At Blizzard, at least historically, the game director decides what they want to do with the game. The president is just one channel of input they can completely ignore if they choose. The game director did not ignore. He balanced a lot of things and ultimately decided where he wanted to take the game. Who knows, my ideas could have been a terrible direction, probably would have been. Well, at least he's honest that his ideas would be objectively terrible, not to mention costly and unrealistic. The next question asked by that same user is if the CEO or president has little influence on the games being made. Then if that's true, who then has to have accountability when something like a World of Warcraft declines in quality as it has? Here's what Mike replied with. Everyone is accountable. President has to hire people who can build teams that deliver for players. Those teams have to be dedicated, work hard, and make it happen in a way that exceeds player expectations. If any of that fails, the game usually fails and everyone is accountable. Making games is not for everyone. You have to give it a lot of your life as a team, and you have to love what you are doing because it becomes life. I can't think of any very successful art form that doesn't take this dedication. Great teams want to make something that is remembered forever. The original WoW team did exactly that, but it took a lot to do. My hat is off to them. Remarkable accomplishment. Nothing comes easy. So coincidentally, when it comes to who's to blame, suddenly it's not the captain of the ship, who everyone is depending on, which is Mike at the time when he was running things. It's very interesting how the absolute state of Activision Blizzard, which Mike criticized by the way, is in a state of perpetual ruin and destruction, now has the gall to say this because, well, history exists. You see, there's something about Mike he doesn't like to bring to light because it kind of paints this whole story in a new way, if you will. It also proves that the people oftentimes in charge of big companies never really take personal accountability for the bad decisions that they also make. And it's extra moronic on Mike's part because this guy clearly is openly criticizing his former company that he left with a golden parachute, that the quality assurance of Blizzard is so bad that the games need to be fixed and do not work as intended anymore. What Mike likely also doesn't want you to know is, well, he's kind of, part of the blame for that very reality that he is now also having a problem with actually too. And I can prove it, by the way. This is from The Verge in 2024. You see, in late 2024, Microsoft announced that Activision Blizzard would be laying off 1,900 employees effective immediately at the company. This happened right before Christmas, by the way. Great time to do it, Microsoft. You really know how to boost morale. As you can also see in that report there on the right, Mike Ybarra also left during this announcement too, meaning that his last farewell pat on the back to the very people who paid his salary was going along with the massive firing spree at Activision Blizzard that happened. The crazy part was allegedly a big portion of those layoffs that happened under Mike Ybarra's role at Activision Blizzard was, and I'm not joking, in the quality assurance department, which is the cherry on this terrible cake, guys. Reddit, back about 10 months ago, spoke on more layoffs, as you can see here. That's not only was like Warcraft Rumble just blown into nothingness, but stuff like Overwatch was affected as well, and contracts were not renewed. So what we have here is a company that was being ran by a guy who is now attacking his former employer because he's frustrated that their games like World of Warcraft and more are so bug-ridden these days. While the exact same guy who's complaining was a part of the firing process that laid off the majority of the quality assurance workers whose entire job was to playtest and report those bugs to Activision Blizzard so the games when they would release them would be as optimal as possible. This is the most on-brand CEO president-like take I've seen in a while, guys. Completely unfazed and equally out of touch, not realizing that the actions that he committed years ago are still having lasting effects to this day on the company that he used used to lead. At least there is a slither of hope in this story, as seen here from PC Gamer in February 2026. Microsoft and Blizzard QA workers have won a new contract that does benefit them, that will also increase their pay and benefits too. Which, I mean, like, thank God at least something positive is coming out of the story. Because listen, alright, QA is super important for obvious reasons. You can have the best game ever with the most insane graphics and more. If the game doesn't work and it crashes every 5 minutes, then what's the point of anything, am I right? Look, okay, I was sent a code by Bethesda to play Starfield. I have since stopped playing Starfield for now anyways, because Starfield on PS5 Pro, it keeps crashing for me. I'm not kidding, like all of the time. Every 10 or maybe 20 minutes tops, I'm having crashes in Starfield. Also, a Bethesda game, which Microsoft also owns, so this all ties together nicely. And it's not like I want to throw Bethesda under the bus here, or really anyone else. It's that this comes from a place of passion, which is what these people need to realize. I'm not just ridiculing them for no reason. You need to beta test these things and check for the bugs before, because when content gets released, like Microsoft so regularly does, right? It's also often filled to the brim with glitches galore too. And that doesn't help anything, because again, I can't play Starfield now. I was on the planet Neon before I stopped playing. I was just running down the street in that world's like, central hub, and then I talked to some dude and like, boom, my PS5 hard crashed, whole thing shut down. Again, this is not acceptable. So for Mike Ybarra to throw the people who worked under him well under the bus, I mean, it's sort of kind of on brand, isn't it? Wow, Mike, imagine that. The people that you guys fired by the hundreds who were actually instrumental to products shipping properly, they got let go. But now you have the audacity to say, yeah, World of Warcraft isn't what it used to be. Like my brother in Christ. That's because of what you guys did. You understand that, right? Hundreds of QA workers didn't just magically get sucked into the sky one day, did they? You guys did this because you believed, I guess, your paychecks or whatever weren't big enough, so you'll sacrifice others to make it happen instead. Fortunately, for those Activision Blizzard QAs who signed that contract recently, as seen here from that article now, the 60 plus QA workers will now have more regulations on AI usage replacing them, as well as things like mandatory crunch time or excessive overtime being controlled more humanely, among other things, which is nice. It's crazy they needed a contract at all to do that, but hey, that's video games. You had one quality analyst who works at Blizzard who had this to say about this big win, as you can see here. At a time when layoffs are hitting our industry hard, today is another big step in building a better future for video game workers at every level. For quality assurance testers, this contract provides us wages to live on, increased job security benefits, and guardrails around artificial intelligence in the workplace. Good. Like, I'm honestly glad for that. If it were up to Mike Ybarra, he would have fired all of you guys. And then complained, why aren't their games selling as well? And then wondering why they're so buggy. Gee, I wonder why, Mike. Like, come on, dude, really? Like how Mike couldn't see the self-owning coming a mile away? Like, I honestly have no idea. You became the president of Activision Blizzard. You removed basically all the quality assurance people yourself. And then suddenly, your quality declines. Like, wow, imagine that happening. Then you leave Blizzard in a terrible state. Again, with your golden parachute, because you were president, CEO, whatever, and you absolutely, like all president CEOs, have a safe package ready so you can leave with your pockets full. And now you have the audacity to look at the absolute state, dude, of the thing that you ruined personally and go, wow, Blizzard's bug problem is out of control. You gotta be kidding me. As this user said, who retweeted PC Gamer's original post, which Mike Ybarra responded to, bold words from the guy who had almost 2,000 QA people fired under his watch, while saying that QA testing is not a long-term discipline. Exactly this. What are we doing, guys? QA, obviously, is just as important as anything else, because you need to ensure that your product works. Otherwise, the product is not going to sell and more will be lost. Like, I feel like am I crazy? Why are these people even in positions of power at all, man? This feels like it should be common sense, but it somehow just isn't. This is like having tours over the Grand Canyon, but there's no guardrails installed and people just keep falling off into the canyon when the wind hits them. Oh, sir, yeah, so we had more people fall into the Grand Canyon today. Guardrails? How can we have guardrails? You guys fired all the people who were supposed to install those guardrails. What do you mean this is my fault? You're the president. It's your job to okay these things. Like, what are you talking about? This is crazy to me, dude. One user replied to Mike and said, easy to talk about that now. You removed most of QA and now it's all in shambles. Now you can back whatever, don't have the team for that anymore. Like, yeah, I wonder why. And Mike just says, you are clueless. Clueless, really. What is what that guy said is wrong? Like, you literally admitted that you gutted the teams at Blizzard and that you removed the foundation of what led to Blizzard's success by delivering bug-proof content and release, but we're the ones that are clueless. This guy is gaslighting everybody, dude. Like, this is insane. This is like the arsonist showing up to the house after it burned down and looking you dead in the eyes and saying, wow, who could have burned this house down, huh? A lot of sicko weirdos out there, I tell ya. And how's Microsoft doing then? The parent company to Activision Blizzard that keeps bleeding money. Well, look at this from The Verge again. It's all down. It's sinking in their own words even. If you want exact numbers as to how badly Xbox is doing, look here. As I highlighted, it's 33% down across the board, okay? That is horrible. That is, we need to fire the leadership levels of bad. That is what that is telling you. The only parts of Microsoft and Xbox that seem to be increasing is their cloud gaming and their AI usage. But the actual games, right? The lifeblood of any like gaming ecosystem, like that is all down. And again, who can you blame for that other than Microsoft's leadership and the people that are in charge of companies like Activision Blizzard, right? When you keep releasing these buggy, unfinished games all of the time, all it leads to is enormous losses of revenue. But that is not because players are toxic or they're grifters or whatever you want to say, right? It's because the thing they are playing doesn't genuinely work as intended. Again, Starfield is borderline unplayable right now for me on PS5. That game came out in 2023. It's 2026 for God's sakes. Why does this thing not work as intended? Like, you would assume, right, that Starfield on PlayStation would have benefited from 3 whole years of bug fixes, updates, and more, so that it would then release as a premium product on PlayStation. Instead, it's an absolute mess. This is why what you're seeing is happening. It's not anger or outrage, okay? It's something far more concerning than that. It's disconnection, guys. You need to understand how we got here, okay? You need to understand what something like WoW or an Activision Blizzard as a whole used to represent compared to now. Like, they weren't just successful at their peak, okay? They were dominant with a capital D. WoW defined the MMO genre. It influenced everything that came after it. It was a world that you could live in. Somewhere in that world, my level 90 warrior is probably still living to this day on WoW's servers. I hope he's doing okay. But my god, dude, how that game has fallen, man. Sure, it didn't change overnight. It was gradual, I know. Like, I enjoyed WoW back in the day. Like I said, I played it. I put hundreds of hours into it, like expansion by expansion and more, right? The game just started to feel more structured and guided. But eventually, like, the focus became more about the engagement systems than like the daily loops and, you know, the retention mechanics, which isn't bad necessarily, I'll admit. They are a part of modern game design, I get that. But that began to dominate everything Activision Blizzard made, and that's where that tension keeps building. Because WoW and games like that from Blizzard, they weren't just built for the metrics, they were built for immersion first. And that brings us all to the leadership team, to people like a Mike Ybarra, because direction like this doesn't just happen in a vacuum. It's instead shaped by the people who make those decisions in the first place. And when Mike left, he didn't leave Blizzard in a good place. He left it far worse than how he found it. And factoring in the billions of dollars that Microsoft paid for Activision Blizzard, it just changed how that company operated too. Nobody can deny that. Because when scale like that happens, right, the stakes then change as well. That's why so many of Activision Blizzard games like World of Warcraft, Diablo, Call of Duty, Overwatch, like you name it, they are all now being built on predictability and scalable systems over like creative risk or experimental design or, God forbid, preserving a game's original identity. Which, can we also agree that those things that they used to prioritize were actually why they were so dominant, unlike they are now? Like, you remember when Activision Blizzard would like release a new WoW expansion back then? I'm talking about like Lich King and like Cataclysm, like that time, you know what I mean? And those things came out, and it was like a biblical event just happened. Like, they just dropped an atom bomb nuke on the entire games industry, and everyone would stop and listen. Like, it was the most amazing thing, because every time they released something during that time period, it was genre defining. Like, we all remember when StarCraft 2 came out. Like, oh my god, dude. StarCraft 2 took over so much, it became like South Korea's national sport. Like, that's insane, guys, but that's what happened. And even when they made Call of Duty, like, we all remember Call of Duty 4, Modern Warfare, Captain Price and So McTavish, like, oh my god, that game was amazing, dude. It revolutionized multiplayer games. But again, that was because they weren't going for the metric systems. They were just focused on making a great game, right? And then they started making Call of Duty every single year, and it's just been buns since that. Even Overwatch, when Overwatch first came out, again, that was Blizzard revolutionizing the entire industry again. For God's sakes, you have companies even to this day still chasing that Overwatch pie, right? Highguard tried doing that. Concord tried doing that. Marathon, to some degree, also has like heroes, in a sense, operators, if you will. Like, you have to understand just how influential Activision Blizzard has been for so long. And all of this is going on, and they've pretty much just lost their identity, and now they're just chasing things that like didn't define them in the end, and they also didn't need to be successful in the first place. Does that make sense? And like, that's the reality. The decisions dictating Activision Blizzard's games now are just being made for retention and metrics, right? Instead of the experience itself. That's what I'm saying. And I get it, okay? WoW has to adapt, especially amidst the world of other live service games, Fortnite and PUBG and all those. I get it. But you have to ask yourself, at what cost does this outweigh the true purpose of such a game being made and then some? Because when you just strip away the systems and the updates and all the expansions, like, what players are really responding to is this. Does this still feel like the Activision Blizzard I used to love? Does this still feel like World of Warcraft or Call of Duty or Diablo or whatever it is? Or does it just feel like something else that's just wearing the skin, the same name? You know what I mean? You could apply that really to this, like, as the same philosophy to Activision Blizzard as a whole too. As a company even, they've clearly lost their morals. They're not really the company that people fell in love with in the first place. I have cousins who like grew up on these kinds of games, right? They used to play StarCraft every single weekend, every single weekday too. I have cousins to this day, they still play World of Warcraft. I have one cousin, he plays WoW Classic like every single night, dude, for like, I don't even know how many years now. But that's the thing. These games used to be genre defining. Nowadays, they're not that. Like, Diablo just had a new expansion, Lord of Hatred. I barely see anyone talking about that online. And I don't have the words Diablo or anything blocked on any of my social media. It's just genuinely not showing up for me, like, organically. It's if people don't even care that just came out. Whereas, like, back in the day, if a new thing came out for Diablo, it was like, again, it was like World of Warcraft. It was like another biblical moment. Like, oh my God, there's new Diablo. Remember when Diablo 3 got announced? Was that like 2012, I think it was? No, it came out in 2012, my bad. It was absolutely insane. It was a massive release. Even when Diablo 4 came out, people were actually still like, oh my God, this is going to be the best thing ever. And then what happened? Blizzard, under-delivered, like they always do these days anyways, right? Maybe Diablo's better now, but when I played Diablo 4 when it first came out, I thought that game was insanely underwhelming, dude. Or pretty much like, you could apply this to anybody that was bought by Microsoft really these days at all. Like, is this the Activision Blizzard we knew and loved? Most would probably say no, definitely not. It isn't. Like, sure, okay, these franchises are still out here generating money, whether it's WoW or COD and all that and more, but something definitely has changed internally, and we can all tell, right? Because the identity of a game franchise, it's not just about mechanics or systems, or even its content. It's about how it feels and what truly makes it unique. And once that is stripped away, it's really hard not to notice where things are headed now. So the question now becomes, can World of Warcraft or Activision Blizzard evolve and become, again, what made them so popular to begin with? Or are we instead just watching everything that is built before just slowly drift away from what defined itself? It's honestly the ship of Theseus all over again, isn't it? And when you factor in a boneheaded ex-president guy who is now attacking his former employees and games and says, wow, these games don't run well. And then you find out how he's part of the reason why things are the way they are. You just have to ask, like, where is all of this going, guys? Like, if no one is to blame conveniently, then how can anything get better really either? If you ask me, the QAs deserved better. The fans deserved way better too. Like, my God, if you're a Blizzard fan these days, you basically have Stockholm Syndrome, dude. Like, you are getting slapped around like a redheaded stepchild on the best of days. It's insane how Blizzard treats their fans and even their employees now. As we know, they laid off over 2,000 QA people. What are we doing? And now you're surprised the games don't run well. Like, you can't be serious, dude. And yet the only person who really got away with what they did in the end, it's the sort of people who obviously just ruin everything to begin with, and that is really sad to see. And again, thanks to FreeCash for sponsoring this video. Remember to check the link in the description or pinned comment to get my exclusive offer. I'm gonna stop rambling for now, but let me know what you think as always. Thanks for being here. Subscribe if you'd like to. And when it comes to people like Mike Ybarra, you just have to ask, are they being genuine, or are these people really this out of touch? Either way, if you ask me, things need to change. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you guys next time.